So welcome in my studio. Some people are asking me what's keep me going, what's make me ticking. Well, I would say an event which happened 57 years ago. Can you imagine 57 years ago? I was a boy, 12 years old, not even 12 years old, and I went with my mother to first American exhibition in Moscow. And I was blown away by what I saw there. I saw their beautiful cars I never saw in my life. I saw their beautiful homes and home equipment. But most likely, and mostly I was impressed and was actually shocked by art which I saw there, which I never saw in my life before. I'm talking about Jackson Pollock, of course. Back then, one of the leading American painters. He was actually new for Europe as well because he was introduced in this time to big cities like Berlin, Paris, London. But at the same time, it's happened in Moscow as well. And this ignited in me some kind of flame, and the pressure was building up all this time. Unfortunately, I was blocked by my own insecurities, by others who would laugh at me, by people's opinion about this kind of art. But it was my dream to one day just to do what he did to blaze a new trail in my life. And that's what happened when I came to the United States. Of course, first of all, I have to learn English and do this and this, but the dream was still there. It was still there. And one day the pressure was so high that I told to myself, well, today or never, I have to do it. And I did. I just started. And it came out of me, and it's still coming. And I enjoy what I'm doing. It's my life. No matter how, if others like it or not, it's my life. It's the way of I live right now. Painting, that's what I do. All my life, I used to be an outsider, a non-conformist. I was a misfit. I was a misfit. I didn't fit in the society where I was born. And actually, I wasn't born in Russia or Soviet Union. I was born in Germany. We stayed, me and my parents stayed in Germany just for 2 years, where I picked up my first German, which would later in my life be my profession, interpreter and translator. But when we came back to Russia from day Stalin died, I remember this day very good. It was March 5th, 1953, and I was just 5 years old, but I remember people were crying on the streets, weeping on the streets. And I was like looking at them and saying, and asking myself, why are they doing that? Just a 5 years old child. I couldn't get it. Why people are crying and who is this guy in a paper whom they called Stalin. Of course, I knew he was Stalin, but it was like a god for us. But I hate it somehow. I don't know from where it came, probably from my grandparents. My grandparents were actually, my grandpa from mother's side was actually, his family was always destroyed by communists in the 30s. And they just barely survived. Probably I just inherited all this. Let's put it mildly. I didn't like the society I lived in. So, but I have to be sometimes just to survive. to go along with this society. But I'd never, in my inner me, in my inside of me, I never accepted this. And I never went to the Communist Party, which I was forced to do. I never went to military because military is for me something I couldn't do. It's just, they just killed, Jesus just learned you how to kill people. And I was in the military since I was 11 or 12 till I was 18. And by the time I turned 18, I was already I was hating this military stuff, despite the fact that my father was in the military, and my mother was in the military as well. So I had just to wait for the time when I could be just myself. And one of these days come later in my life, and I would put it in connection with one of the movie which actually decided my life. That's a Jack Nicholson movie, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And actually, everybody remembers this last scene in the movie, this break out of prison. And that's how I broke out of Russia, 1991, and a new stage of my life started. And then actually here in the United States, I had finally the opportunity being what I am, a painter. Well, by the late 80s, the Soviet Union was on his last leg. Everybody felt it, everybody, but me particularly. I was working back then as interpreter, mostly with companies from Federal Republic of Germany back then, from Austria. And of course, through my contacts, I had more information about what's going on. I couldn't listen to radio stations from the West and becoming more information than the average citizen. And the situation was worsening from day to day. And I was really politically involved back then. I hardly missed a demonstration or protest meeting. Was always there on the streets, on the squares, protesting. And Gorbachev was back then pretty popular figure in the West. But I didn't get it because I never trust this guy. I never trust him. And I knew whatever he says is a lie. It's a lie. And I can't find the truth in this city, Moscow, big city, not in this country. The truth is somewhere else. Actually, the truth is inside of me. But nobody was allowing me to get it out of me, just to say whatever I like to say, to be free, to be a free man. Actually, my last name, it's probably fate. My last name, if you should translate it from Ukrainian, Slobodenyuk, it's a free man. It's me. I'm a free man. I'm a man who, first of all, put freedom up front, and then the rest. That's my value. So I just couldn't take it anymore. And one of the days, particularly after one of the accidents with the police on the streets in Moscow, and I was threatened by the police. It was probably the straw which broke my camel's back. So I just left. Fortunately, I already had the tickets reserved. And next day, I just took $1,000 which I saved in my pocket. I took my sport bag with a couple of clothes, and I just flat, actually a flat, like the guy, like the Indian flat from the Kukul's institution in the movie I told you about. It was just a breakthrough. I never look back, actually. I never look back. And I never regret which I did. Talking about colors. Growing up in Russia, you see everything just in gray. Gray, black and white. Red, which is everywhere in Russia, but this is, you don't consider it to be a color, actually. It's a political statement. You don't connect to this red, or if you connect to that, you should express you have to make a political statement, like I'm a communist or something. That's how you see color, particularly this color in Russia. Gray, it's just gray. Gray. It's mediocrity. That's what people. Mediocrity was what the party liked to the people to be. Don't in any way make yourself be noticed. Be like others. Be gray or carry a red flag. That's you. Then you will be probably a real party man, a political man. But I always hated that. But the actual color I learned when I first came to Vienna. It was 1970. I was a student back then. And I came with a tourist group as a translator, as an interpreter to Vienna. And interesting, I remember till this day, when the plane door flew off. And the first what I see, it was airport, Vienna airport. But I didn't see the buildings, I see the colors, this red, this green, this blue, which I never saw in my life. And I had an experience like a man who is colorblind. All of a sudden he turns, his vision turns back to normal, and all of a sudden I see the color. Same happened to me when I came to Miami. It was like my brain just exploded with all these colors everywhere. And I think that's mostly which inspires me till today. I'm a history buff. I love history, general history. But when I came to the United States, and back then it was 25 years ago, my English was very poor. So first of all, I have to learn English. But I was learning English through TV. So I was watching TV around the clock. So, and of course I started reading, but I started reading, first of all, history. So, and history, because I'm a history buff, like I said, it's my passion. I love passion. I love tell the stories. You can probably see two sides of my art. One of them is action painting, where other people call me Jack the Whipper, because I'm whipping the canvas, not like I said, like Jackson Pollock was dripping the paint on the canvas, and he was dubbed by Life magazine Jack the Dripper. So action painting, where I mostly express my inner world, my emotions, mostly positive emotions. It's one side. Another side of the coin is history. And I like to tell stories. Behind every collage, and in this particular field, I'm mostly using collage. Collage gives me the possibility to incorporate history in a picture. When I'm walking in the streets, I just see, I hold my eyes open, and I found many objects on the streets which people just throw away. But for me, they are art objects. And they pick them up, and I don't know for sure how I will use this particular object, a can or a package or whatever, something, box. But I know for sure one day I will use it somehow. And then I incorporate these real objects of art, which we call ready-made art, and I combine it with my painting, and I'm trying to tell the story. Like this story, for example, the story which concerns everyone in America right now. So a story about Donald Trump. Here I incorporated the very known image by Duchamp, whom I consider one of my teachers as well. And the image which I just found on the streets from old magazine, and I just put them together, and I made a political statement. That's, I think, where that's in my opinion where the Donald Trump belonged to. He belonged to in the toilet. That's my statement. That's a story. Some people would agree, some people wouldn't, but it doesn't matter to me. I did it. I said what I mean.
I said what I mean. Cool. Why do you want Michael to be in the video?
I don't know. I mean, what do you think?
Well,
I mean, tell me.
a lot of the things that he says, I like what he says, but compared to Bruce, no one knows who he is, do they?
No.
I don't think I'm going to add anything. Yuri wants me to tell how I know
Yeah.
and these certain things and what I know about.
Some people are asking me why I'm wearing a cowboy hat and where this is all coming from, because actually I'm a Russian. There are no cowboys in Russia. Well, it's not true. First of all, there were many westerns in Russia, and I loved them as a child. I went to see all these movies. I was fascinated by these guys on the horses and this energy and the way they're shooting and the way they behave. In Russia they actually well liked because they are outsiders. They're not like they're misfits. And I consider myself a misfit as well, at least a misfit in the country where I grew up. I couldn't fit in this country. So that's probably one point to the cowboy outfit. Another point is most significant that actually Jackson Pollock considered himself a cowboy artist because he grew up in Wyoming, and he used to take care of horses, and he was actually wearing a hat, cowboy hat. And it's the third point which I want to just express about being cowboy. I consider myself a being cowboy artist because I'm painting from the hip without actually pointing, without actually aiming. I'm just painting from the hip. All energy comes from the hip. So that's 3 points. And by the way, my favorite movie was Magnificent Seven. And the major character in this movie, Chris, was played by Yul Brynner, who actually is one of my most favorite actors. And to make a story more interesting, Yul Brynner was a Russian. He was born in Russia. So that's the connection I have to Cowboy, to Westerns, and to American culture.